Every great city tells a story. This is the city that basically, because it made cars by the millions, it created modern industry for the United States and in some ways for the whole world. It created cars the whole world wanted. It became known as the Motor City, Motown, and it created music the whole world wanted to hear. It was the cradle of so many things. It was the cradle of the auto industry, the cradle of the union movement, the cradle of so much culture. And to come here and to see it, it's to look at what happens when history takes a turn for the worse. But there's another part to the story, which is Detroit is coming back. Some of the abandoned factories are being renovated. Some of them are being torn down to make way for housing or for development. So it's not just an unhappy ending. In some ways, it's not over for Detroit. And that's the other part of the story, is to come and see a city that refused to die and is now slowly, painfully being reborn. I'm Jonathan Mann. I've spent my life as a journalist. I like to engage with the world. I like to engage with people. I like to engage with places. I like to engage with ideas. And I like to engage with nature. I guess each one of us has times when they're more passive and more active. I just like to let it soak in. I'm interested to be here because the United States is a very big country and elections are big and complicated, but it generally comes down to just a few places, and this is one of those places. Michigan tells the story of what's working and what's not working in American politics, and it also tells a story of just how competitive it is. The United States is so polarized between two political parties that have basically exactly the same amount of support nationwide. Now, in a lot of countries, the chief of state, the president, might be elected by simple majority of the people who vote. It doesn't work like that in the United States. The person who wins the most votes doesn't necessarily get to be president. It's the person who wins the most states, and crucial states, because they have different weights in this. So imagine a tug of war between two sides, pulling on a rope, and they're basically even. Some states never change the way they vote. They vote consistently Republican or consistently Democrat, election year in, year out. So there are a handful of states that do change. And those states themselves hinge on just a few thousand votes. So a handful of votes in a handful of states will decide who wins the entire country. Those crucial states swing it one way or the other. Those are called swing states. It's all about a few thousand votes in just a handful of those swing states. In Michigan, it comes down essentially to two candidates, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but it comes down to different interest groups. What do auto workers want? What do African Americans want? What do Arab Americans want? How do women who live outside the city vote compared to those who live in the city or those who live in the country? It's a complicated mix, and there's nobody better to explain it than David Dulio, who's a professor of political science at Oakland University.
Mr. Dulio, 1 Bravo. Marker.
What do the polls tell you, what your instincts tell you about the way Michigan's going to go?
It's going to be close. Michigan is a swing state for a reason. Biden wins here in 2020 with 150,000 vote margin, which seems like a lot until you compare it to Trump's margin of victory in 2016, less than 11,000 votes out of 5 or 6 million cast, right? So it's going to be close. Michigan is going to be front and center on the battle lines of American politics.
A lot of Americans think Joe Biden's just too old to be president. And a lot of Americans, some Republicans among them, think Donald Trump's too crooked. He's on trial in 4 states, 91 charges against him. How much are they both laboring under these impossibly heavy burdens of mistrust because of age or because of misbehavior?
Both presumed nominees for both major parties are incredibly flawed, right? They are each facing severe challenges to their candidacy. As you mentioned, Trump and his legal troubles, Biden and his age and the signs of that age, right? I think it's important to note that it's not a number, because Trump is almost as old as Biden, but he hasn't had the same type of stumbles and verbal gaffes that the president has.
He can remember
had.
people's names.
Yeah, right, most of the time anyway. I think it's also worth pointing out that large majorities of Americans, 65%, don't want to see a Trump and Biden rematch, but that's exactly what they're going to get. And they are concerned about that rematch. They don't want it because of those issues of the problems that both gentlemen bring to the race. And 65% of Americans can hardly agree that the sky is blue. So to have that high a percentage say, we're looking for something else, is a significant development.
Trump says if he wins in Michigan, he'll win the White House. Is it that simple?
Not really. I think Trump can win the presidency without Michigan, but it's very difficult to see how Joe Biden has a path to victory without Michigan.
Reverend, I don't have to tell you, Michigan's a swing state, and it swung back to Joe Biden last time around. Yeah. How important was the African-American community, the African-American vote, to his victory?
Crucial. You cannot win Michigan without winning the black vote. Detroiters, Flint, Saginaw, those voters in those areas are crucial to anyone winning the state of Michigan. So the mere fact that he won Michigan let us know he has to get the black vote. Without the black vote, it's impossible. The older generation, pretty satisfied, status quo. The younger generation of African-American voters, not so much. They're upset because of the student loan debacle. They're upset that they feel they don't have...
The president promised that he would get their college loans forgiven. That represents a fortune for a young person.
Exactly.
And it didn't go anywhere.
And it was not his fault. It was the fault of the Congress for not passing it. But in the eyes of young folk, they're like, well, he promised it, it didn't happen. So he has to get the message across to them that I tried, I'm still trying, but it takes a Congress to work with me. The other issue is that there are a lot of young folk that's quite frankly perturbed in terms of what's happening now in the Middle East in terms of Israel and Hamas, and particularly the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Young blacks are saying, okay, we need to see some things. We want better jobs. And President Biden has given us jobs, 350,000 in the last quarter, but it needs to be tangible so young folk can feel it. So young folk feel one way, older blacks feel another way. The key thing is they have to vote. Black folk, older folk are saying, I'm still vote. Young folk are saying, I'm not sure. I may stay home and I may sit this one out.
He could lose a few votes, but if a substantial number of the very big African-American community stays from the polls, what happens?
If large numbers stay home, he loses, hands down.
It's really easy to think of Michigan in general, Detroit, as the natural partner of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party likes to think of itself as the party of working people, immigrants, minorities, and you have those in abundance here in Detroit, you have them elsewhere in Michigan. But somehow that partnership has evaporated. And the Republican Party is making inroads because it has become a party that says, you deserve better. You have been failed by your leaders. You have been failed by the people who promised to protect your jobs. And so the idea that conventional politicians have turned out to be deceitful, conventional politics has turned out to be unhelpful, and that conventional politics has to be turned on its head have become the lifeblood of the Republican Party in many parts of the country, but especially here in Michigan, where people have so much to be justifiably angry about. I mean, you walk around here and you think this government, the United States government, has been giving enormous amounts of money to Israel and to Ukraine, and is promising to give more than $1 billion more. And many people here are wondering, where's the $1 billion for Detroit? Why isn't that money making this country better when we're so concerned about protecting the lives and the well-being of people in other countries? And Detroit is a monument to that way of thinking.
What's at stake in this election for Michigan?
Southern border is the one big one. Jobs, and making sure that Donald Trump puts the tariffs on these overseas manufacturers that are just dumping cars into our community. You just saw the UAW endorse Biden, yet the rank and file definitely do not endorse Biden.
This is the largest automobile manufacturing union in the country. It's a power. It's a historic pillar of Detroit and of Michigan. And as you say, the officials say Biden, and the working men and women say
Trump, because of the fact that they know their job depends on the economy.
A lot of Americans think Joe Biden is just too old to be president. Nice man, too old. a lot of people think Donald Trump is too much trouble to be president. 4 different court cases, 91 charges against him. Are you grappling with an election where people are really, they feel both candidates are compromised?
Well, you know, again, look where we were 4 years ago. It's almost black and white.
Well, tell me that. Where were you 4 years ago? Where are you today?
Secure southern border, a good economy, cheap gas, and today it's the opposite of everything. Like, I'm in the construction business, so all construction jobs are all red team. Everybody that's in the plumbers, electricians, carpenters, they're all for Trump. And if you talk to somebody just out there and they say, oh, I don't do politics. I go, do you do $4 gas? And they're like, oh, I don't like $4 gas. I go, then you need to do politics.
How does this look to you? Is it going to be close? Is it going to be too close to call? Or do you think you know how it's going to turn out?
It will be interesting. Michigan, this year, it's the biggest swing state. Again, Donald Trump was just on the radio this morning, and he recognizes how important it is. That's why he's going to be here 5 more times this year.
It's no secret, if you read the newspaper here, you get a sense that there are some tensions inside the Republican Party here in Michigan. And they broadly correlate to a group that really wants Donald Trump to be in the White House again, and a group that's not really sure that they want him as the party's nominee. Nationwide, there are a lot of establishment Republicans who are not comfortable. And they used to run the party.
Yeah.
And they don't anymore, but they're still Republicans, I think they are. How much of a tension is that going to be, do you think?
So as the chair of Oakland County, I have done a pretty good job of reaching out to the business community and the grassroots community and letting them know that everything's going to be okay. Trust us on this one. And bringing people back to Michigan politics. And they realized that where we were 4 years ago is a heck of a lot different than where we are today. So if we can just instill in the business community, the grassroots community, the establishment, if you want to call them that it doesn't matter which side you're on, we were better where we were 4 years ago. Let's all come together and then vote for Donald Trump.
So this is really a must-win state for the Democrats, and you pretty well need it pretty badly if you're a Republican.
Absolutely. And that's why both campaigns are going to be here for the next 8-9 months. You'll see both candidates come here a lot, surrogates come here a lot. Millions and millions of advertising dollars are going to be spent here in Michigan. And you know, the folks here, the voters here in Michigan need to be ready for it because it's coming.